With the interview complete, we thought we'd walk outside and show you the porch and down under in the basement. During the Civil War, the house fell into Union hands, handed over by the owner for reasons not quite sure of. But one can really see how this would make a very useful military headquarters. With red brick walls 18 inches thick, octagon design, windows in every direction, one can see how this could be a formidable stronghold.
See how it goes down to the kitchen. Kitchens were separated from the house those days in case the kitchen caught fire. It wouldn't take the house with it. Amazing. 8-sided house, the porch wraps all the way around.
There's beautiful original glass. You can see it's weight.
Then down into the basement.
The
See,
basement.
This is why we don't let anyone go down here.
Stone floor.
Stone, and I think some parts of brick.
Looks like ghost hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Here's the kitchen. I think this was partially storeroom.
Is that stove original or
I don't know. I think it was brought in. It would have been. That's probably 1900s and 20s.
Oh yeah,
The cast iron stove. They probably cooked in the fireplace.
The description I got was this is a particular type of basement, not completely dug into the earth, but dug down a little bit and earth piled up around it, and then the house built on top of it. And this basement, given that it's underneath a fairly large house, has a lot of room. Looks like it would hold a lot of goods through the winter.
This is partially below ground. That's what they would call a bream today. A bream? Bream.
Then back across the stone floor toward the entrance and our guides.
Oh. You know why Longwood is
Here's a shot of the concrete.
The artisans were all Yankees. And when the war broke out, they all left.
The next stop on our Clayton day trip, Grace Episcopal Church. A beautiful old building with lovely stained glass windows, this one inscribed with names.
It's a beautiful shot. And the trillium up top. Everything in here. The building was built in 1874. The land was given by General Delmore Clayton. It was an active congregation until about 1959, and at that time it was disbanded. Everything in here, the furnishings are original to the building. When I show it as a Dorset, I like to explain it as primitive Gothic. If you notice the pews and the furnishings, they're lovingly done, but whoever carved it was not quite the artisan. It was love and profession and just love that did it, I think. But the furnishings, the altar is original, and it's used only once a year. There's no electricity in anymore. So on the first weekend in December, when we have every light of prayer, which is a service for servicemen, we use this church. The Community Garden Club sponsors it. Everything is done by candlelight. The decorations are all period to the time of this original church. We usually have a very good service here, and it's a beautiful piece of architecture, and I hope that it can be preserved for generations to come. We are very proud of this as much as we are proud of our Octagon house, and we do like to keep it up. It is privately owned.
Standing in this church, one can almost still hear the choir singing and the sermons ringing off of these ceilings. perhaps sang from these old hymnals. Old hardwood floors.
Last year the service was on December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. And this is the service.
The decorative ends of these pews, hand-carved, and fitted into the wall at the other end. It is good to see old churches and buildings like these being preserved. This church even being used once a year, though it no longer has electricity. It's all done by candlelight. Next, we were taken outside so I could get a look underneath the building. Walking through ivy and who knows what else, I got a good look at the furnace that used to heat the building through the floorboards. Then we headed on down the road about a half a mile to the local cemetery, where there were a couple of attractions.
Here we are at the Whiskey Bottle Tombstone. The legend behind this is a young man was married and he drank a lot, and his wife said, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to drink yourself to death, and when you do, I'm going to make your tombstone in the shape of a whiskey bottle. So W.T. Mullen died at the age of 29, and lo and behold, his tombstone is in the shape of a whiskey bottle. And it's kind of an interesting, maybe funny story, maybe a little sad. The inscription says he's the son of J. and N. Mullen, but does not say that he was the husband of Mrs. Mullen. And I think my favorite thing to think about is maybe the stone carver who got to do the shape of a whiskey bottle after doing so many normal tombstones. It was probably fun to make a different shape. And you can see it's very elaborate. It's got a cork, and it's in the flask shape of the late 1800s. If you come to the footstone, there used to be a cork here. It's now missing, but it is traditional to leave a coin when you come. So someone walking by, if they want to, go get a drink, they can come here and grab your change. You just looked at the whiskey bottle tombstone, and maybe you're thinking, oh, an anvil tombstone. Was this person killed by an anvil? No, he was the village smithy. So his tombstone is shaped like the tool of his trade.
And across the street from the cemetery,
Behind me is a Carnegie library. Another building in town was torn down, and the ladies from the church cleaned the bricks themselves, and they built this. The library is in the basement, and there is a college in the top floor.
and then we ventured on down this long grassy drive to a cemetery where there are some people of note.
Way back behind the Carnegie Library and the Senior Center of Clayton is an African American cemetery. Anne Lowe, a famous fashion designer from the 1950s, she designed Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy's wedding dress to JFK. Her ancestors are buried here.
And then the answer to an earlier question.
Sometimes, as a part of day trip, we think we've found something really cool. Like earlier, we thought this was a tombstone, so we asked around and investigated, and it turns out it's actually just part of the retaining wall you see over here.
Yep, myth busted.
And this wraps up our Clayton day trip. Walking on the streets of this old southern town neath the warm summer sun, it was a beautiful experience and one that I suggest to each and every one of you.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of Day Trip to Clayton, Alabama. It was very fun.
We had a great time. We saw the Octagon House and the Whiskey Bottle Tombstone, and we really recommend that you come out when we have a day.
A lot of original architecture here that doesn't exist in a lot of other places, including the Octagon House, which there's only 7 left, so get them while they're still here.
We couldn't have asked for a better reception. Everybody was super friendly, and it was just a perfect day.
See you next time, and rock on.